The Timeline is a Blue Wire podcast. Welcome to The Timeline, a Phoenix Suns podcast. My name is Mike. I'm here with Sam. Sam, the Suns are now 43-10, so let's trade all their players away. How does that sound?
You know exactly what makes our audience tick, my friend. That is precisely what we're going to do today.
Yeah, that's right. So we're gonna obviously preview the trade deadline here and talk about some of the most interesting and maybe most likely trades that the Suns can make, trying to be as realistic as possible towards the end of this podcast. But we are now recording this immediately after the Suns defeated the Chicago Bulls on another Eastern Conference road trip. Devin Booker had 38 points, was spectacular throughout the game against a very good team in Chicago. It was a fun game, Sam. What'd you think?
Well, if you haven't gotten the chance to watch this game yet, because we're releasing so soon after it, a very misleading score here as the Phoenix Suns won this game by 3 points, and you might think, oh wow, the Bulls outscored them by 16 in the fourth quarter and made it a close game, but this game kind of felt out of reach until the last 1 minute when the Suns put in all of their third string and immediately blew like a 10-point lead. It was pretty miraculous. So able to escape it. Another good win for Phoenix. All of the relevant key guys played well. Booker, one thing we're waiting on, I will say at this point, is it looks like he banged up his knee. He was taken out of the game at one point, iced it, came back in the fourth quarter, seemed to be moving all right, maybe with a slight limp, though, so it's definitely something I'm going to be curious to see the reporters give us some more information on. All of the other key guys, I mean, Chris Paul, 19 and 11, 4 turnovers, but a good game overall. Ayton fouled out, actually, in this one. The rare game for DeAndre where he fouled out in only 23 minutes. But Mikal Bridges, Cam Johnson, dudes came to play. And just continue to roll through, and we're hoping for a good week here out on the East Coast. They've got Philly tomorrow, Milwaukee on Thursday. We're covering that game on playback as well. It's a tough week. It is a tough week up ahead. Yeah,
absolutely. I thought this was a really good game to watch for the Suns, but it was another game where they pulled ahead by a lot, which they did in Washington. It's tough to get a lot of great analysis out of that. I mean, there was some interesting things that the Bulls did. Actually, now that I mentioned the game against Washington, you were there. I forgot about that. You were at that game. You went to Washington. You said there was a lot of Suns fans in the crowd. How was that game? How was it to see them live?
It was really fun. First of all, D.C. is a cool city. I hadn't been there in about 10 years, so it was fun to be there, even if only for the weekend. Capital One Arena it's a nice arena. But yeah, one thing I think we do know about DC, it's kind of a transplant city, right? And so that coupled with the fact that the Wizards have not had the greatest, certainly after their really, really hot start to the season, it's been pretty rough. I would say it was pretty close to 50-50. I'm not even going to lie. It's kind of, I may be exaggerating a little bit, and granted, it's a little bit difficult to parse through as I was kind of just doing a quick glance at the rest of the audience, because the Suns colors are like purple and orange, and the Wizards colors are red and blue, basically. So it's like adjacent enough that just a quick glance at the audience, sometimes it's hard to tell exactly who's wearing what jersey. However, I met a ton of Suns fans there. I went with a Wizards fan myself. He had given up on the game by the second quarter. It was a lot of fun. But yeah, Suns fans definitely showed out. And if you want to take that as an example of Phoenix transplanters in other cities who are just really proud to root for this team again, it's definitely possible that that's the case. Or if you want to take it as a sign of bandwagon effect, I wouldn't say we're exactly there yet, where we're not rivaling the Golden State bandwagon, that's for sure. But there might be some people starting to take notice of this team in unique cities and just being really excited to show up and support them.
Yes, Suns fans who were fans in the Steve Nash days just lying dormant in other cities waiting for a team
It's
that's
a
actually
ton of
fun,
that, dude.
fun to go watch.
It's a ton of that. And it was, because I went to their game against Brooklyn early in the season when they beat them as well. And Brooklyn is another franchise that's just not known for a great home crowd. It's not MSG. It was exactly the same thing there. Just tons of people who I assume many were from Phoenix, but I also assume many were like me, native New Yorkers, who had just supported this team for however long and were excited to see them finally thriving again.
That's really great. I'm glad you went to that game. It's nice to have a man in the arena to do the proper. I'm sure you were just having drinks and enjoying yourself, which is
Literally.
what you should do.
Yeah.
I mean, we're not reporters. If you're at the game, have fun. That's the most important thing to do there. Devin Booker in this game. I know that there's a Philadelphia game, so we won't spend too much time on this game. Most of you are probably listening to this after the Philadelphia game. Hopefully, he had another great game and he's fully healthy. But in this game, 38, 5 and 4, 14 and 23 shooting, an amazing game for him. Chris Paul, 19 and 11, nothing surprising there. Only 11 shots that he took. But I just want to quickly mention this guy because we don't have a lot of opportunities to give him some credit. Even though the Suns basically lost their entire lead when he checked in at the end of the game, this was a pretty good Elfrid Payton game. And he's been doing some nice things lately. Not good. I wouldn't say he's good. But he's done some nice things on the court lately, and we don't have a lot of opportunities to give him some credit on the podcast. So I just wanted to quickly mention that Elfrid Payton's done a good job in the last few games recently.
I will allow you to take ownership of that role.
I'm not making any predictions for what he is, and it's clearly one of the things that we're going to talk about. We already recorded our trade deadline preview before that game. We're going to talk about potentially upgrading that spot and maybe taking away his minutes, but it's nice that he's not for the extended stretch, which we still don't know how long this is going to be. I have a feeling it's going to extend through the All-Star break, but the extended stretch without Cameron Payne, who makes a big difference on this team, allows Chris Paul to not get as many minutes. For that extended stretch, you would think that games would be falling apart a lot more, and look, a lot of the point guard responsibilities fall into Devin Booker's lap here. But at least with Elfrid Payton on the floor, they've been relatively okay, and it hasn't fallen apart the way that you would have expected it to.
For sure. And, in this game, he shot 4 for 6. Obviously, the issues at the rim, they speak for themselves. We've seen that with Elfrid throughout his career. Tonight was a better example of it. More importantly, though, I think sometimes you do get 5 or 6 minute stretches out of him where he really keys in defensively. In the fourth quarter of this particular game against Chicago, I think it was clear at a certain point they did not want him guarding DeMar DeRozan and Zach LaVine, and so they brought guys like Mikal Bridges back in the game pretty quickly. But he has some solid stretches and he has frustrating stretches. Look, if you can get Elfrid, he's always meant to be a third-string guy on this team. This is not the Elfrid Payton of last year on the Knicks where the expectation was starting him for some reason, and obviously that was an experiment down there in New York that was destined to fail. For Phoenix, you're just asking him pretty much to be a replacement player. And if he can be a replacement player, which I think he has been, that's fine. That's an acceptable standard to hold him to. So I will give him credit. He definitely played well tonight.
This is the last podcast we're going to record before the trade deadline and before the Suns play the Bucks for the first time this season, which is Thursday on TNT. How crazy is it, by the way, that the same day that the Suns play the Bucks on national TV is the day of the trade deadline? Any thoughts on that Bucks matchup before we get to that our trade deadline preview?
I'll be totally honest. I haven't really thought about it. There have been so many other key games recently, and even I was really excited for this Bulls game tonight. So to see them come out and go up instantly over 20 on them in the first half was really exciting. We'll see again how they do against Philly tomorrow. It's going to be tough with Joel playing like he is and them on the back-to-back. But I'm kind of the mind at this point that Milwaukee, as cool as it is to have the high-profile national TV game where you get the finals rematch, they're just another team at this point. They are, truthfully, the team after Golden State that I think poses the biggest threat to Phoenix for the ultimate goal, the championship. But they face challenges like Milwaukee at this point in the season, They're kind of just another, maybe you circle that one on the calendar. You do the requisite film work and prep to get yourselves ready for that game, but they're just another team. They've played teams like that.
This week, the Suns are playing Chicago, which they just won. Philadelphia, which is a back-to-back. Milwaukee and Orlando, Eastern Conference games across the board. In fact, if you look back, it's Brooklyn, Atlanta, Washington, Chicago, Philly, Milwaukee, Orlando. Lots of games against the Eastern Conference here, but this week alone, 4 games, 2 of them at home. What would you be happy with at the end of this week as far as a win-loss record here? This is good teams. 3 good teams in a row: Chicago, Philadelphia, Milwaukee. Obviously, Orlando's terrible, but 3 good teams before that.
So the record out of this week being those 4 games overall?
Yeah.
Well, okay, so they're already 1-0. I mean, look, man, I think you can go 4-0, but if you go 3-1, I'll live with it. The expectations for this team are kind of just sky high at this point, right? But you really do believe in every game. If they've got a 1-point lead by the end of the third quarter, you feel great. So
the toughest one, I think, is Philadelphia at this point. Embiid's playing at an MVP level. Devin Booker possibly just banged his thigh, calf, knee, something in this game. If he's not feeling 100%, that could hurt the team. But second night of a back-to-back, I think that's the toughest part of it. Obviously, Milwaukee's the best team of that group, but the Suns have time to prepare for that one. So, yeah, I think 3-1 is the baseline here. 4-0, obviously, they definitely could do. But, yeah, let's switch over to our trade deadline preview. We recorded it before the Bulls game, and I know you guys want to hear it. We talk a lot about what the Suns' options are, so we'll switch over to that right now after this break.
Let's do it.
Listen, life's all about leveling up. Whether you're handling business on the field or kicking it in your zone, you like to celebrate with cigars that match the moment. That's why you should link up with Famous Cigars to bring you a wild deal. Right now, you can grab 8 premium cigars for just $8. You heard that right. 8 top-rated cigars at $1 a stick. Top quality brands like Oliva, Romeo y Julieta, and Davidoff. Handpicked just for you and worth over $80. Hit up famouscigars.com/cam and lock in this exclusive deal. While you're there, check out their insane selection of premium cigars, all shipped fresh and fast from their massive 20,000 square foot humidor. That's half a football field. Famous Cigars has been in the game since 1939 and still family owned. So celebrate every win with the folks at Famous. 8 cigars for $8. famouscigars.com/cam.
Okay, Sam, first thing I want to do is say our opinions on what we think the Phoenix Suns and their goal is going to be for this trade deadline, because obviously we've talked about specific needs, and I just want to make sure we recap those needs here and move from there to maybe taking a look at the rumors or the market as it is so far. So first off, what do you think, if you're James Jones, what would be your goal going into this trade deadline?
Yeah, so I think I've outlined it in the past, but I guess the overall point that I could say here to resume, to summarize, is you look at the Suns roster right now, and currently, as of today, we're recording this on the evening of February 7th, just a few days before the trade deadline, and we still have no updates on the health status of players such as Abdul Nader, Frank Kaminsky, Dario Saric, who all used to play critical roles for the Phoenix Suns. You look at the rest of the bench, which leaves you relatively thin. You have Ish Wainwright, who's signed to a 2-way contract, who as of today would be ineligible to play in your playoff rotation. You have Elfrid Payton, who has largely been, in my opinion, disappointing. You have Landry Shamet, who has been, in my opinion, largely disappointing on the season. The Suns' top 7, top 8 rotation is incredibly strong. Bismack Biyombo was a fantastic midseason surprise that has allowed your center rotation to become even more deep, but you cannot go into the playoffs getting basically a big fat 0 in terms of production out of all of your spots 11 through 15, your entire third unit. Because should there be any injury to anyone in the playoffs as it currently stands with this roster, we know what the holes are, and we know that it would make a big difference potentially in a playoff series. So as I look at the Suns right now, I think we've talked about the specific needs in the past of potentially a small ball 5 option, and definitely for sure more self-creation off the bench, another guard to come in and score a little bit. So those continue to be the goals, but I don't think anything massive is needed here. I think the Suns are in the driver's seat of the Western Conference, and they don't need to entirely reshuffle the board with something rash. So We're looking
Yeah,
at minor
yeah.
moves. We're looking at bench players. We've talked about all the names in the past. Maybe we can bring up some new ones today. But we kind of understand what the general tier of player that we're talking about here is.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think one thing they got to do is set Jalen Smith free at this point. Get him to a team where he can play center and play more minutes, and we'll talk more about him in a second. So start there and just sort of free up, bring more balance to the roster. There's too many guys who are best at center, not enough forwards, and not enough shooting off the bench, I think is another thing, thanks to really both Cameron Payne and Landry Shamet shooting below their career averages. Well, at least for Cameron Payne, below his average here in Phoenix, and Landry Shamet below his career average from three so far this season. So if you're looking at that, then you can say shooting, balance to the roster off the bench. And I think when you talk about them being relatively minor moves, I think one way to look at that is to just essentially say the starting lineup is safe. They're not going to trade any of the starting lineup. No reason to at this point. Chris Paul, Devin Booker, Mikal Bridges, Jay Crowder, DeAndre Ayton. They're safe.
Are you 100% sure?
I mean, no. I guess I am pretty sure. I mean, we'll get to that. I guess
I'm also pretty sure.
Yeah. I mean, they'd be safe if I were the GM.
Ideas
we'll start there.
Ideas have been raised. Let's just say that it's It's guess or grift season. That's the theme of today's pod. Anyway, continue.
But let's say those five are safe. Who off the bench is safe to you? Because I think we can both say that Cameron Johnson, being that he's essentially at times the third best scorer on this team, depending on who's healthy and who's not, I'd say that he's safe. We can count him as safe. Cameron Payne, do you say you guarantee Cameron Payne is safe at this point?
I'm 95% confident that Cameron Payne is safe, because if you absolutely had to match salaries in another manner, like say you absolutely couldn't get off Landry Shamet's contract because no one wants it, let's just say. And you need to trade in order to get some guy that you want. You need to trade another mid-sized deal, not a veteran minimum contract. Kaminsky won't cut it. Peyton won't cut it. Nader won't cut it. You need another mid-sized deal. I think the Suns would be sooner to trade JaVale McGee, who also makes around that $5 to $6 million range, because they have Bismack Biyombo now, before they trade someone like Cameron Payne. Even if you believe that Payne has been a little bit disappointing this season, they can't afford to lose his creation off the bench. So, I'm 95% confident that Cam Payne is safe ahead of the deadline.
I agree with that, too. And I think for two reasons. We saw what he was in the playoffs, which was very good. He was very, very good in the playoffs. And he was getting better before the injuries. So I think there is more to Cameron Payne. As frustrated as some people have been with his play so far this season, I think his best play this season is probably still ahead of him. I think he can still get better. And sometimes, taking a little time sitting on the bench and watching these games can help bring focus to your game. So when Cameron Payne comes back, I think he'll be better. And truthfully, I think Monty Williams just really likes him. And Agreed. I think that's enough. Yeah. So you said JaVale McGee could be traded. So I agree with that. I think JaVale McGee, as good as he's been, I would say that it's most likely he will not be traded. But I think there are certain kinds of moves, thanks to Bismack Biyombo coming in and being relatively good, there are certain kinds of moves where if you absolutely need to trade JaVale McGee in order to get the player that you want, maybe JaVale McGee can be traded, but I think it's most likely he's safe. And I would say this too, Biyombo probably too. Like I actually think maybe even almost a little bit more safe.
Yeah.
I just don't think he has the salary that makes that makes it matter to trade him. And I also think for Biyombo, he specifically stayed out of the NBA because his father passed away, and he was dealing with that, and he wanted to find a team where he felt comfortable. He signed a 10-day with the Suns specifically because he thought he could have a future with the Suns, and then the Suns signed him for the rest of the season. If the Suns turned around and traded him, that's pretty messed up, and I just don't think they're going to do that. So I think Biyombo is probably pretty safe there as well. Everybody else, which at this point, Jalen Smith, Elfrid Payton, Ish Wainwright, Frank Kaminsky, Abdel Nader, and that's it, basically.
Šarić,
yeah, Šarić is there too. Those are the trade chips the Suns have, along with a future first-round pick, future second-round picks, and things like that, right?
Yep, you nailed it.
Okay, so that's basically what we got there. There's I would say 7-8 guys that are fully safe on this team so far. So what are the needs? Now, you mentioned it. We'll just outline it one more time. the Suns have been rumored to be looking for shooting, so we'll say that there. Shooters. And then the second thing is the Suns played relatively well recently with Ish Wainwright at small ball center. I don't know how much they like Ish Wainwright, but what it did prove is that they need a small ball center. They need one more wing that can do that. They experimented with a lineup that included Cameron Johnson, Mikal Bridges, and Jay Crowder recently, so that shows some level of interest in playing a small ball five again.
It is worth noting
the rebounding was not really there.
It is worth noting in that particular game, I loved the effort, but it did not work in that specific game. That was the Hawks game.
It needs more strength.
Yeah,
it just needs more strength. I think that's what's missing with that lineup. Cameron Johnson's not beefy enough, I think, to take those minutes. I think he works really well in a small ball five lineup, but more as a 4, which is kind of where his position is so far this season. So I say those are the two things. Is there anything else? I mean, you can sort of throw it in with the shooting, any sort of ball creation for offense, but any player that they get, I think, also needs to be a capable defender, right?
Yes, you want defenders similar to Shamet, actually. Something you have to give credit to Landry Shamet for all along this season is that he's never been a negative defensively, and you've never felt like in watching him in those 3-guard lineups where he plays small forward or really Booker plays small forward, you've never felt like you're giving anything up to this point. Potentially there are some specific teams, some specific matchups in the playoffs where those lineups would definitely not work. But at least in the regular season, it's always felt like a relatively neutral defensive kind of scenario to me. And any guard that you get now, you're really just looking for an offensive upgrade over Shamet. Defensively, you're looking for a guy along the same lines. Maybe he's a little bit undersized in some scenarios, but someone who's not going to be played off the floor, who the offense will relish opportunities to target in matchups over and over again.
Yeah, exactly. It's just the way that Monty plays. Chris Paul was recently, if you haven't listened to it, Chris Paul was recently on The Old Man and the Three.
Terrific.
He talked about, it's so good. Yeah, it was really
so
good.
I mean, it's so good.
He compared the way the Suns prepare on defense to the way the old Clippers teams used to prepare on offense. He said the way Doc was with offense, that's how Monty is with defense. The Suns kind of need really smart defenders because Monty over-prepares them for matchups, it sounds like. So that's the type of thing that we'll talk about guys in a second. Of course, everyone's waiting for names. But before we talk about the specific rumors, I want to just quickly touch on the 2 trades that have been made so far, because oftentimes the first few trades set the market. They help us to understand what it's going to cost to get specific guys, or they even free up, like a team specifically, the Cleveland Cavaliers that are looking for another offensive player. They could have been in the market for Eric Gordon. Well, now they traded for Karis LeVert. So that gives us an idea of who's available and what kind of resources could be available for players like Eric Gordon. But first we'll say the Clippers and the Portland Trail Blazers traded Norman Powell and Robert Covington for Eric Bledsoe, Justice Winslow, Keon Johnson, and a 2025 second-round draft pick, and that went to Portland. So a very bizarre trade where Norman Powell and Robert Covington, 2 players that could play on a playoff rotation right now, were traded for Eric Bledsoe, Justice Winslow, Keon Johnson, and a second-round draft pick. A trade that, even as I say it, does not really make sense to me. Do you have any quick thoughts on that trade specifically?
Yeah, well, I think the salary cap experts have made it pretty clear what the point of this trade was for Portland. They were at risk of the repeater tax, being in the luxury tax 3 years in a row, and they want to get out of the luxury tax because they understand that they're not really competing. How that impacts the mindset of a guy like Dame Lillard, who's still there, I don't know. I would imagine poorly. But clearly this was not really a trade in good faith for Portland to compete. I don't really think there's any argument that you didn't lose a lot of talent in that trade. And so for the Clippers, it's kind of interesting, man, because on the one hand, Norm Powell and Robert Covington, they're role players. They're not, they're nothing more than role players. They're good role players, but at the end of the day, that's all they are. Coming from a Suns perspective now, though, I think this is kind of interesting because we're at a point, Minnesota, as you know, I love the Timberwolves, and they're low-key killing it recently. They have kind of solidly put themselves into that 7th seed for the time being. It's looking more and more like there's basically a 95% chance that the Suns will be playing one of the LA teams in the first round. When you look at a trade like this, if there's any possibility, and I'll throw it back to you in a sec to gauge how you feel on it, but if there's any possibility that Paul George or Kawhi Leonard return for the playoffs, I kind of feel like this is a trade that's solidifying that the Lakers are the team that I want in the first round. And I don't know,
Yeah.
is that totally insane to say? Because
No.
I understand that the Lakers at full strength have the 3 stars. I mean, kind of 2.5 stars, whatever. But first of all, the Lakers don't really have trade chips either. So, the Lakers are not really going to be capable of stocking up at the trade deadline. I'm sure they understand that there are tweaks that they will have to make. But ultimately, their treasure trove of assets, they have Talen Horton-Tucker and Kendrick Nunn, and that's about it. They can't really trade anyone else. Don't have picks either, or at least not a lot of them. So it's going to be tough for LA to stock up on talent. They kind of are who they are at this point. By LA, I mean the Lakers. Sorry, I realize I have to specify. The Clippers have so many role players now. So many good
insanely
role
well
players.
balanced. I'll go one further. Even if just one of those 2 guys is fully healthy by the time the playoffs starts, it's still a scary team and a tough out.
Yeah.
No matter who plays them.
Well, also, and mind you, remember we talked about how Nick Batum was the dream, or one of the dream acquisitions a couple of weeks ago when we started covering trade targets for the Suns, and that dream is definitely dead now.
It's not necessarily dead.
I think it's probably dead.
Well, here's what I will say. Ty Lue said recently that he said we're not going to get Kawhi this season. He just said it in a post-game interview. So that alone has an effect on this. So I think you're probably right that it's probably not going to happen this season. But I just say it's not completely dead yet, because I still think that this move for the Clippers, as good as it is for them this year, it's still pretty good next year. Now, Robert Covington is a free agent, but they have his bird rights now, and he's not going to sign for a lot because Robert Covington is not as good as he used to be. So they could potentially sign him using their bird rights and keep him, and then they still have Norman Powell, who's on a, not a great contract, but a relatively good contract. I don't want to spend too much time on that. Let's just quickly review the next trade. The Cleveland Cavaliers traded for Karis LeVert, basically in exchange for Ricky Rubio, a first-round pick and 2 second-round picks, which I think is kind of interesting.
You got to speak to this one. Just give us all your thoughts as someone who watches the Cavs probably more than any other Suns fan on planet Earth.
Well, I do think that in a lot of ways, the JB Bickerstaff is going to have to fix Karis LeVert. I almost want to talk about it from a Cleveland Cavaliers fan perspective, because I like the Cavs, and I think they play really smart, really good basketball. And I think Karis LeVert, the last few times I've watched him, doesn't quite do that. He holds the ball a little too long, focuses a little too much on looking for his own shot. Somebody like Ricky Rubio was really perfect for how the Cavs played. Ricky Rubio, by the way, is not going to play in Indiana. He's out for the season, and his contract is up at the end of the season. Technically, he could still re-sign on the Cavs, if anyone's wondering. But Karis LeVert, I don't think this makes a huge difference the way maybe some people would think it would. But I do think that it's nice for them to get something out of the remaining part of Ricky Rubio's salary that they're not getting. I mean, they already are this good, and they're not using Rubio's salary, and they're not using Colin Sexton's salary either. And it's nice for them to get something. But I do think here's, from a Suns perspective, Ricky Rubio, which is a nothing, basically. So it'd be like the Suns trading Šarić, although
Yes,
I'll get to that in a second.
Exactly that type of transaction. Yeah.
Šarić still has a year left on his deal, and Šarić was good before he was injured. So just keep that in mind. But Ricky Rubio plus a first-round draft pick and 2 second-round picks for Karis LeVert, who's relatively young at this point. So when we're looking at this, and we can switch over to the names that we're going to talk about now, I think that this is a relatively comparable move to what the Suns would need to make for Eric Gordon. Now, the difference being that Dario Šarić is a playable player next year, somebody who could play and could be good at basketball as early as next year, or even possibly by the end of this season. I saw him working out on Instagram recently. It seems like he's getting healthier and healthier by the day, whereas Ricky Rubio is not even going to ever put on a Pacers uniform unless they really find him interesting, which supposedly they tried to sign him before the Suns did. So that's, I think, where we land here. It's an interesting look at what the trade market is currently. Look, you can find a team like Portland who is like in maybe close to the tax and try and fleece them the way that the Clippers did. Or if you're looking for a player that's good, maybe a little too good for the team he's on, and they're trying to tank a little bit, then you're looking at something more like what the Cavaliers and the Pacers did at this point. So let's get to some names and some rumors, because there have been a few rumors about the Phoenix Suns. We'll start with Eric Gordon. We talked about this on a recent podcast episode, but the only thing that's come out is that Jake Fisher from Bleacher Report basically said that he thinks that some of his friends within the league thinks the Suns might actually be interested in Eric Gordon. I'll say it right now. We have friends that cover the league that reached out to us and told us that supposedly the Suns and the Rockets are right now speaking about a trade. So the Suns supposedly, I trust this person, are actually speaking to the Houston Rockets about Eric Gordon right now. So this is something that could happen in the near future. My read on the situation is this. The ball is entirely in Houston's court. I don't think they want Eric Gordon beyond this trade deadline, but I don't think they want to give him up for nothing. They probably want to get the most out of him, and I think that's where this Ricky Rubio trade is interesting, because it's Ricky Rubio, a first-round draft pick, and 2 second-round picks. Those 2 second-round picks are the type of thing where a team goes, fine, take the 2 second-round picks. And then just give us the player already. Take the 2 second-round picks. We'll move on from this.
Well, yeah.
That might be the type of thing the Suns have to do in order to get somebody like Eric Gordon, who's not as young as Karis LeVert, but arguably has been better this season.
And second-round picks at this stage with where the Suns are not the hill you want to die on. I'll just say that right now. I do want to work in another rumor that I saw regarding Gordon this weekend. It's from Matt Moore. Been on the podcast before, a long time ago, granted, but he said, based on league intel, the Rockets have told teams they have 2 different offers currently of a first-round pick for Eric Gordon. They're looking for a team, and I think this is the critical part, they're looking for a team that won't send back significant salary beyond this year. Houston is also looking for a pick in the teens instead of a late first-round pick for Gordon. So here's my read on that situation is one of those 2 offers is currently from Phoenix, and Phoenix wants to send them 2 things. A late first-round pick it could be in 2024, it could be beyond.
As early as possible, most likely in 2024, based on the way that the pick is going to convey to the Thunder this year.
Yeah, a protected first-round pick in some sense that maybe the Rockets could hope to be a little bit better looking by the time, we get a couple years more into Chris Paul's old age, but really, who knows? Like, it's not the best first-round pick on the table that the Rockets could possibly get. Let's put it that way. It's not like the 16th or 17th overall pick in this year's draft, which I'm sure they would love if they could get something like that. So that's the first thing. The second thing about not talking about significant salary, the Suns have offered Landry Shamet and stuff to the Rockets right now, and they're trying to build leverage to see if they can get a true expiring contract, because they do not want the possibility of taking on all of that poison pill money with Shamet. Not to mention just having him under contract for the next 2 years, I don't think would be something that terribly excites them with the way he's played. So can they build the leverage in time for Thursday? I don't know. Yeah. I mean, Gordon is one of the hottest commodities on the market right now. So
yeah,
it's
33-year-old Eric Gordon.
Yeah.
Now, I just want to clarify real quick. We don't have details on what they've spoken about. We've only been told that they've engaged each other in a trade. I think, but there's nothing surprising about that at this point.
Let me just be clear really quick so that people don't run away with this. We don't have, or at least I don't know about you, I don't have sourced information, saying that they've put anything specifically on the table. This is just me speculating based on what I think is common sense with what we know about the situation at this point. So don't run off.
But I do think there's another rumor here. This is also Matt Moore that I want to say. Matt Moore attempting to apparently be a newsman now, trying to break news. But he said, and I think this is related, and here's why I don't want to move on from Eric Gordon just yet, but he said the Suns have taken calls from the Denver Nuggets, Detroit Pistons, Washington Wizards, San Antonio Spurs, Toronto Raptors, all calling specifically about Jalen Smith and what the Suns would probably trade. I'm guessing like in a one-on-one swap for Jalen Smith, or even for potential second-round picks. And I think this is relevant for 2 specific reasons as it pertains to the Eric Gordon trade. I think the Suns could probably make a trade with any of these teams and get either a future second-round pick, or maybe even probably just a second-round pick, or they could probably get one player from any one of these teams, somebody at the end of their bench. But they probably want to find a deal that could potentially package Dario Saric and Jalen Smith together along with the first-round pick, which is something they could potentially do for Eric Gordon. So I don't think they're going to try to move on, which we should still talk about those teams in just a second, because I think there's some interesting players in those teams that the Suns can look at. But I think they're going to wait, because what if they can flip Jalen Smith for some picks and include those picks in a trade for Eric Gordon, for example? Maybe those are the second-round picks a la the Rubio trade here for Eric Gordon. So that's something that I think we can keep an eye on, because maybe they don't want Jalen Smith, but he doesn't have salary next year, right? So if they're dealing with the Rockets, they probably don't want to put Jalen Smith up to be traded to any of these other teams until they know exactly what the Rockets want. But I guess, Sam, since this is our trade deadline preview podcast, can you just quickly talk about, I know we've done this before, why Eric Gordon works on the Suns?
Yeah, that's fine. Why Eric Gordon works on the Suns? Well, actually, you know what? It's funny because I haven't looked at his stats. You should have told me to prepare for this, man. I haven't looked at his numbers in a little while.
We've talked about it every week.
We've talked about it basically every week.
We're always prepared for this.
Okay,
yeah.
so why it's funny, I think he actually has been in a little bit more, just a tiny bit more of a shooting slump recently. I know he didn't play the most recent game. But Eric Gordon, this is why I wanted to check. Eric Gordon is still shooting 43% from deep on the season. He's a capable pull-up threat as well as being able to just shoot the cover off the ball when it comes to catch-and-shoot situations. But in addition to that, Eric Gordon is one of the rare 10% of the league who is an elite shooter, or at least at times when he's in a hot streak like this, appears to be an elite shooter, while also having the ability to put legitimate pressure on the rim. Most guys that you get specifically for the purpose of shooting, Landry Shamet comes to mind, but there are a million other names, are these 40% guys who are going to hang around as the 8th or 9th man, maybe deeper, in your rotation, and their job is just to sit in the corners, lift, and shoot. Gordon is a legitimate slasher, and when I mean legitimate, I mean legitimate. He is a very crafty layup finisher. He's been one of the most efficient players on all drives this season to the rim, almost as efficient as Giannis Antetokounmpo himself. He's got a great floater, but also he is good about initiating contact. He gets to the line at a pretty solid rate. He's like not a pass-first guy. He never has been, but when he does, he's shown the ability to make solid reads. He has a good assist-to-turnover ratio. He's never been a bad playmaker, in my opinion. Basically all of a combination of offensive factors that just make this guy someone you can put into the games in the playoffs and know that he can play 25, 30 minutes and he can get buckets. And he can get buckets by himself if he's leading a bench unit or next to Campaign, or he can get buckets spotting up in the corner or the wing next to Chris Paul and Devin Booker. It really doesn't matter. He kind of has he kind of has as complete of an offensive package as you could possibly ask for out of a bench guy. That's what Eric Gordon is.
Yeah.
So, you know, other people have said, by the way, that his defense has been underrated this year. I'll be honest, I haven't focused enough on Eric Gordon's defense recently to tell you exactly how I feel about that. But I believe that
and he's on a terrible team. It's hard to...
Yeah. I believe at least historically that he has been solid enough when it's counted to believe that analysis that I've received from other people. So, you know, he's a lot of offensive value being added and belief that he could be solid enough defensively where... In sum, you're getting a good player. That's really all it is.
And there's two things I want to mention. First of all, in one, it's that Eric Gordon, most people probably know him, especially if you're younger, probably know him for what he's done with the Rockets. Previous to the Rockets, he was an on-ball guard. He wasn't this catch-and-shoot guy. He wasn't this third option. He was the main guy. He was the guy handling the ball and attacking the rim and doing everything that somebody like Devin Booker would do. Clearly not as good as Devin Booker, but that's what he was. And now he's sort of morphed into this sort of movement shooter who attacks closeouts and is capable of guarding, in the playoffs in the past at least, 1 through 3, basically. You don't want him necessarily on a star point guard or anything like that, but he can guard guys. It's not somebody who's terrible at it. And then the second thing is, some people have expressed some sort of trepidation as to whether or not he can play in a 0.5 offense. I just don't see that at all. I think he's kind of perfect for it. I don't really understand what people are afraid of. The guys like Karis LeVert are the guys who we talked about before, who I would have been worried about playing in 0.5 offense. I think Eric Gordon, the purpose of 0.5 is in 0.5 seconds, you're going to catch it, you're going to either shoot it, pass it, or drive. And I think those are the things that he's looking to do. Now, as far as how good his passing is, maybe it's not that great, but maybe we need another guy who's willing to shoot on a closeout that's a little bit closer than other guys are willing to shoot on. And it's kind of okay that he's going to shoot on those. So I don't have any sort of trepidation about him specifically when it comes to that. Any other thoughts on Eric Gordon?
I think we have talked Eric Gordon. I mean, I think every Suns fan out there is like totally on board. If you're not on board the Eric Gordon train at this point, I guess let me know if you still exist, if you're out there. I definitely know some people have hit us up like on YouTube and various channels being like, the Suns don't need to do anything. They're in the first seed. Like, I
understand that. I understand it.
I don't get that mindset, man. Just because you're first doesn't mean you can't make tweaks. We're talking about tweaks here. Although there are one or two big ideas that we should touch on in a moment.
Well, let's just quickly revisit this Matt Moore report.
Yes, let's talk about
as it pertains to Jalen Smith.
Let's talk about Jalen Smith.
Well, I look through all these rosters, and I'm going to repeat the teams that are supposedly, according to him, I guess we could say guess or grift when it comes to Matt Moore here. And it could honestly, it seems like he's legitimately trying to report something that he's heard, and I think it's specific enough that it does not feel like a grift to me. In that he even said that the Pistons offered Rodney McGruder to the Suns, who they tried to trade for Denver's Bol Bol. The trade was actually declined after they had some doctors actually take a look at Bol Bol, and that's what caused them to decline the trade at that point. So I believe it. I think Jalen Smith is similar to Bol Bol and what they could do. And they're interested in him based on that. So Denver Nuggets.
Let's just say real quick, by the way, let's make it abundantly clear. Jalen Smith, I do like, but it's too insignificant of a name to grift on. It's just
that's a great point.
So
that's a great point.
I think I see this as a legitimate report.
Right. Okay. Denver Nuggets, Detroit Pistons, Washington Wizards, San Antonio Spurs, Toronto Raptors. Those are all the teams that are supposedly interested in Jalen Smith. You can also throw in the Boston Celtics, who were rumored to have offered Dennis Schroeder, which the Suns turned down, which tells me one thing. Chris Paul probably said no, and that's probably why they didn't do that, because I could see how Dennis Schroeder, you could talk yourself into him. It just seems like everywhere he goes, it doesn't quite work out unless Chris Paul's there. I looked through all of these rosters. Did you have a chance to just sort of look at them by any chance?
I'll be honest, I did not, so I'd be more curious to hear some of your targets.
Well, first thing I'll say, they're probably not getting any of these guys unless they include something else. Now, the first one is the Nuggets. There's two guys, Jeff Green and JaMychal Green. I don't think that they have enough to get either one of those guys. Jeff Green, though, does have a player option at the end of this year. If the Nuggets understand their place in the standings at this point, or maybe Jeff Green utilizes the leverage that comes with his player option, maybe it's possible the Suns could make a trade for Jeff Green, who is kind of everything that we've asked for in a backup small ball five. In fact, he's probably one of the best in the league at being a backup small ball five on the bench. So Jeff Green, first guy. JaMychal Green, not perfect, but a backup forward that could potentially play in a pinch. He shoots the three. I don't know, not super exciting, but we're talking about a potential 1-for-1 trade with Jalen Smith at this point. So that's what it is. What do you think about either of those guys?
It's interesting because I haven't really checked in on how Denver people are feeling about this deadline, but my understanding at least would be that they wouldn't be super psyched about trading with Phoenix at this point. I think they still see themselves. I mean, just to be honest, like I still think they see themselves as one, and here comes the meme guy, but one Jamal Murray return away from being right in the thick of, a Western Conference Finals appearance or something like that. Yeah. I imagine that's how they view it. So I hesitate to believe that either of those guys would really be firmly on the table for someone like Jalen Smith.
I think I agree with you. But that's the guy, like Jeff Green. I mean, wouldn't that be great? I mean,
Jeff Green would be great. I mean,
rosterbation here, yeah.
For sure.
Okay, so Pistons, next team. Boy, was it depressing looking through their roster. I couldn't find a single guy. Like, if the Suns just have to get rid of him to the Pistons, you try and get second-round picks at that point. Otherwise, you're looking at, like, Hamidou Diallo. Like, that's really... I couldn't find anyone else, because they have some young guys that are good, but they're clearly going to hold on to those guys.
Yeah,
they want to add Jalen Smith to those guys.
If you want to make a deal with Detroit, you're talking about a young team that wants to acquire more young talent, which means they're not trying to trade, at least typically, they're not trying to trade their 23-year-old for your 23-year-old. You're looking for veterans. The problem is they literally don't have anyone. Diallo, decent player, not a shooter, not interested. Just doesn't really fit in this rotation at this time and place.
He did play with Chris Paul in OKC, so there is some sort of chemistry there. That's why he stood out to me. The Wizards, KCP.
What about?
I think that was the name for the Wizards, KCP. That I think would be perfect.
I'm sorry, real quick. I did notice Corey Joseph is on the
saw
Pistons.
That too.
Too small.
Yeah.
He makes Jalen Smith's salary, but probably too small to play shooting guard like reliably, right?
Too small to play shooting guard. I mean, you're basically getting someone to replace Elfrid Payton at that point, and then maybe you could cut Elfrid Payton or try to trade him to somewhere else. I think that might be the type of move where if Elfrid Payton, like literally all it would take is if Elfrid Payton is well liked in the locker room, you just wouldn't make that move because you don't want to mess with stuff like that at that point because it's not enough of an upgrade for me to really like it, I guess. I don't know. Right now, without Cameron Payne, of course, he shoots
43% from deep this season.
Yeah, and he's better than Elfrid Payton. He's actually a relatively good defender, to be honest, but I don't know. I wasn't overly excited by that because I guess I'm just trying to find guys that can play in the playoffs more than anything else. So that's a move that doesn't do that, but it's still possible because you can't keep Jalen Smith. You got to trade him at some point. Wizards, Kentavious Caldwell-Pope. That's a name that I don't know that they'd be willing to trade him, and I think the Suns might have to give up something else for him, even just salary alone. But we're talking about somebody who could potentially replace, like if they're willing to take Landry Shamet on, if you're talking about somebody willing to replace Landry Shamet, KCP's a better defender and has been a better shooter so far this season, and he won a championship, so he has that playoff experience as well. It's kind of a great fit. What do you think about KCP?
Yeah, he's all right.
Jalen Smith is not enough. I'll say that.
I feel like I watched a little bit too much Lakers. I got more than enough of the KCP experience watching him on the Lakers, particularly last series, last year in the first round, where he absolutely could not buy a bucket. Man, it was painful. And I know you shouldn't judge a guy based on one playoff series, but I think KCP shot 20% from deep, maybe 20% overall.
He was starting. He had a whole different role for this team.
I know. And he's had a better season on the whole. I don't know. He's like, I could get behind it, but he's not my favorite option. I guess I'm just not confident that he's a clear upgrade over Shamet. Because at the end of the day, I don't think, and I've said this a million times, by the way, I don't think Shamet has been bad this season. I think he has just been very average, and I expected more than average.
He's been bad offensively.
Yeah,
he's been fine on defense.
He's been bad offensively if your expectations are being set to championship, which it's fair that those are our expectations. If you just set your expectations at Landry Shamet previous to this season, then he's been bad. Landry Shamet is kind of that guy who is just built for first round basketball. Like he raises the. I mean, I feel bad now because he's not a finished product.
So trade him to the Mavericks then.
I don't know exactly what he'll be, but yes, kind of everywhere he's been thus far in his career, it feels like he is a floor raiser, not a ceiling raiser. That's all.
Okay.
So
Spurs. There's an obvious name for the Spurs. I know you know who it is. Thad Young.
Is he? You fucked with the delivery, man. Yes, Thad Young.
Thad Young, I mean, there it is. I think the Suns have enough centers. Like, if you absolutely want to trade for Thad Young because there have been teams that believed he was a good Giannis defender, then okay. Like, if that's the only thing you're going to do it for, then okay. I don't really think he fits on this team the way it's currently constructed, but there it is. But the guy I know that James Jones would want is Doug McDermott from the Spurs.
Yes.
And I just don't think he's going to be available. You'd have to do something like Jalen Smith, Dario Saric, and a pick, probably, which is kind of a lot to give up for Doug McDermott. But Doug McDermott's kind of perfect for the Suns. Not a great defender, but like a very good offensive player. Basically, a lot of the stuff that Cameron Johnson is capable of doing, Doug McDermott is also capable of doing. Can't really be a small ball five, but when it comes to more shooting off the bench, that's a lot more shooting. So that's just a guy I wanted to throw in there too. But what do you think about those guys?
Doug McDermott the thought of him being a small ball five is hilarious, by the way, because that would
stretch the floor.
That would go really, really, really poorly. Yeah, it'd stretch the floor for the other team too on defense. But Offensively, I mean, he would be a perfect fit. He is a James Jones type player because he is just James Jones, the 2022 version. So yes, if James Jones had the opportunity,
without the super long arms,
yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Raptors. This is not an overly exciting one either. I think there's like Chris Boucher is an option from the Raptors that just doesn't really fit the Suns anymore, and it's probably not good enough to play in the playoffs at this point. Yuta Watanabe is a forward. Yuta's pretty good. Like, he's not great, but that's just like, if you're just at some point, if everything else ran out and you don't have anyone for Jalen Smith, then maybe you get Yuta.
I kind of like that. I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah.
I kind of like that.
Yeah.
That kind of feels like a moldable or a malleable young wing that could do well in the Sun system.
Or how about Svi Mikhailuk? I don't know. He's a shooter. He's relatively good. He plays forward this year. In the past, I thought of him more as a guard, but he's been more of a forward this year. It's just another name that's not overly exciting. But if everything else runs out, you need to get rid of Jalen Smith. Svi kind of works. You can trade that. I think that they would work salary-wise, too, relatively easily. So they're just some names. I went through every roster.
Not
on
sexy
that list.
names.
Those are all of them. Yeah.
But workable. That, some of those felt workable to me. So I applaud you. Good job. Now,
most exciting is Jeff Green, probably, but I don't think he's going to be available.
it's time to bring up another name.
Okay,
It's my turn now.
go ahead.
We got to move on from Jalen Smith, man. We spent I spent a meaty chunk of this pod talking about Jalen Smith, and you know who I have to bring up now.
Okay, who?
Domantas Sabonis.
Okay.
We have to do it. We have to do it.
Okay.
I'm sorry. We have to do it. For whatever reason, look, guys, I was kind of busy this weekend. I was in D.C. I wasn't really paying attention to Twitter for the most part, but this guy dominated the discourse for a full day, and I logged on a couple of times, and I saw people in a total frenzy.
Right.
I don't even know where to start with this.
Well, I guess you could just say, just for people to know, it was Flex.
Yes.
Who tweeted it out, Flex from Jersey, who has been right on stuff before. I mean, he talked about Chris Paul before anybody else did, so give him credit for that. If we're going to say guess or grift on this one, I don't think it was either. I think he's legitimately trying to report something he's heard, so I'm going to give him credit there. That maybe the Suns talked to the Pacers about Sabonis. I'm not going to accuse him of either of those things. If you'd like to, feel free. But as far as Sabonis goes, if you're trading for Sabonis, I'm just going to say it right now, you're going to move on from Ayton.
Yeah.
Sabonis is a starting center in the NBA. You talk about him playing the Dario Saric role. Cool. Maybe he will play the Dario Saric role this season, and maybe you can get him without trading Ayton this season. But if you're DeAndre Ayton and you have Sabonis playing behind you, you know what the Suns are doing there. That's basically a security blanket for the Suns for when DeAndre Ayton signs somewhere else.
Pretty much,
I mean, I like Sabonis, and I've made fun of Sabonis in the past, and I mostly just hate the idea of him as a power forward because he's not. He's a center. And I think he's a great player. And if you really just want to picture what Sabonis would look like on the Suns, there was a 10-game stretch where Frank Kaminsky was starting for the Suns, where he was playing out of his mind.
Oh my goodness, it's that on crack. Yeah,
it's that on crack. You can't trap the Suns at that point. The offense would be completely insane. Like, it would be really, really, really good because Sabonis can do so much with the ball in the middle of the floor, and teams like to trap against Chris Paul or Devin Booker. The offense would be insane. But yeah, I just don't see any chance of this happening this season.
Yeah,
if we want to talk about Sabonis in the future, we can, but I'm not worried about it right now.
Yeah, I would agree. So this is the type of move where I felt that because it had dominated discourse so much, we had to address the merits of just the talent level of a player like Sabonis and what adding a player like that would mean. However, I don't at all believe that it's feasible this season. I don't at all believe that it's going to happen. This is exactly the type of move that I talked about not making. You're not looking to rock the boat when you're 42-10, first seed in the Western Conference. You're just not.
If the season ends and DeAndre Ayton desperately wants to leave, you try to get somebody like Sabonis at that point, I think.
Right. Just for the record, he's averaging 19, 12, and 5 assists on 65% true shooting. I mean, I think the talent kind of speaks for itself. This was kind of interesting. I looked at the exact stats, and I know he's not a power forward. I know he's not, because I've watched him too. I do think it was kind of interesting, though. Did you know the Pacers have a positive net rating when Sabonis and Miles Turner share the floor this year? They're a
but
plus.
even in those lineups, Sabonis is playing the center on offense.
Right.
And Miles Turner is playing, the power forward.
Right,
on
which
offense.
is why
'Cause he's a stretch.
No.
Stretch guy.
You're not telling me anything new. I know it's not. There's reason for them to move on from these guys, right? It's not a sustainable pairing in the future. I just thought it was kind of interesting. Miles and Sabonis together is a +3 net rating. Miles by himself is a -3. Sabonis by himself is a -3. Maybe that speaks to the Pacers' depth, but I also think it kind of just speaks to you've got two pieces of this jigsaw puzzle that just don't quite fit. They're kind of appealing. And
maybe they could both be better somewhere else.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. So if we're talking about, look, here's the only question when it comes to Sabonis. He's clearly an all-star level offensive talent. Can you build a championship-winning defense around him as your starting center? That's where it begins and ends, the conversation.
If you trade for Sabonis, you have so much faith in Mark Bryant, the big man coach of the Phoenix Suns, and what he's done, and he's earned it. He's turned DeAndre Ayton, who came into the league as a non-defensive prospect, into one of the best defenders in the NBA. I think it would be fascinating to see Sabonis with a bunch of really great perimeter defenders, which the Suns now have, and see what he can do within a defense like that. But I just really think there's no point in talking about this unless it happens. So I'm kind of prepared to move on from Sabonis.
I don't shoot the messenger. All I'm saying is I had multiple people reach out to me saying, "Hey, what do you think of Sabonis? Can you guys talk about Sabonis?" Here's what we think about Sabonis. Okay, we've covered it.
Last one, Kenrich Williams, who we know our friend David loves, and we love as well. I personally love his hair. He's got great hair, and he's a great player. Kenrich Williams, though, the more I think about Kenrich Williams, I do genuinely wonder if the Thunder are even interested in trading him. He is a free agent after next season, and he's an unrestricted free agent from my knowledge of that situation. And to me, maybe they do want to trade him and just get rid of him because he's like the oldest player on that team, basically. But also, I think there's a small chance that when you're trying to build a winner, which they might be doing by the end of next season, you want to re-sign a guy like Kenrich Williams because he kind of fits. Yes, he'll be 28 when he's a free agent, so still older. But at that point, he'd be the type of veteran that you want. So I would love Kenrich Williams, even if it takes a first-round pick because he's signed next year. I think it's worth it. It's the kind of specific security that you need, that if there is an injury, Kenrich Williams can kind of slot into the place of Mikal Bridges or Cameron Johnson for extended periods of time. That would help the Suns out a lot and can play significant minutes in a playoff rotation. Do you have any other thoughts on Kenrich Williams that we haven't already covered a bunch of times already?
I continue to really want Kenrich Williams. Bring me Kenrich Williams. That's the extent of my analysis at this time.
Okay.
Friends.
Any other names that we haven't covered?
No. Friends.
Okay.
We have 3 days. Rest easy. Be well.
Can I ask you before we go?
Protect your mind, body, spirit. Yes. Ask me. Ask away.
Who's the number one guy of all these names that we've talked about that you would want?
I mean, I think it's Eric Gordon, man. I think the wing depth would be nice. Kenrich is great, but like, in my opinion, you could plug in a different wing who's not Kenrich Williams that you get for a second-round pick like Torrey Craig again, and maybe hope that it works. Eric Gordon's offensive skill set is much harder to find. I think it's orders of magnitude harder to find. He's my guy.
Yeah. And there's other names that we could have talked about. I don't think Josh Hart is available for what the Suns are trying to trade. So if you like Josh Hart, sorry we didn't really talk about him. I would put Eric Gordon at the top, but mostly because I don't think Jeff Green is available, because I would really like Jeff Green on this roster a lot. I think it would fit in really, really well. But yeah, that's all we got. We'll be back after the trade deadline. For Patreon listeners, we probably will skip out on the Patreon the episode this week and just do a regular feed episode after the trade deadline just to wrap up what happened and just put that one out instead. Join us on Thursday for the Bucks game on playback. We're actually recording this right before the playback of the Bulls game that starts in 5 minutes. So we're going to end this one right now, but we appreciate you guys listening back after the trade deadline.
For over a century, Johnny Walker has shared its bold spirit with the game of golf. Now, crafted with Devereaux Golf, Johnny Walker introduces the Johnny Walker Blue Label-inspired Sunday Golf Bag, elevating the game with sleek design, blue label hues, and refined gold accents. Celebrate your hole-in-one with a premium Sunday bag crafted by Devereaux Golf. Submit proof of your achievement to JohnnyWalker.com/blue-in-1. Please drink responsibly.